Students ask me all the time, how do I break in a deck of cards? And it really varies. If you've handled a variety of different decks, you know that each deck responds differently, not just to different pressures and different humidity conditions in different part of the world, as crazy as that sounds, but also your hands. And sometimes your hands are dry, sometimes they're a little damp, and these affect everything when breaking in a new deck. Now, one of the other big reasons I had this deck sort of designed and manufactured was, as I mentioned earlier, for my fans. And that's just not a line. It's also, people have been asking for years, will you do a custom deck and this and that? And because I always use bicycle cards, there really wasn't a reason for me to do a custom deck. But I've had so many fans ask me, so my first thought was I wanted to do something very personal. I wanted the cards to be among the most intimate design, ever done in the Magic community. And that's why I had my tattoos incorporated into this. This deck is, along with the other things, I wanted to share some cool ideas for some reveals and things, but it's also a way of me saying basically to my fans, thank you so much for caring so much about my unique magic. And in response to that, my unique teaching style, in response to that, I wanted to create something that was equally unique. So having said that, breaking in the deck. I find bicycle cards, for me, break in quite quickly, but then are very slippery and can get sticky pretty quickly in my hands, sometimes, bicycle cards. Which is why exactly I wanted this deck designed to be a few different things. As I mentioned in the preview, I've had them printed on a slightly thicker cardstock because I really want them to be workhorses. But I found as a result, these cards can take a little bit longer than some packs I've handled to break in. But once you break them in, I find they last a lot longer too. So, what is it? A little bit of not short-term pain, long-term gain, but something like that, So you're going to find these cards feel, I'm sure because they're a little bit thicker, they feel a bit different in your hands, at least initially, than a lot of decks you've used before. Now, as for breaking in a deck, I don't do anything particular. I don't make a point of breaking in the cards like this, as I know some guys do, or doing a lot of springing with the cards to try to break the backs of them in a sense. Instead, all I do is a whole bunch of in-the-hands riffle shuffles. I find it really is the best and organic way. I cut the cards, and I'll do this for, I don't know, watching TV or driving in the car. Yes, with both hands. I'll do this for 15, 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. And generally by then I found that these tattoo decks break in very nicely indeed. So simply in the hands riffle shuffles. I'll do some of my favorite cuts and things. And that's really all. One other thing I do a lot of is the classic pass. I practice my pass a lot. I've been doing it for many years, and I find practicing the pass is also, because with the pass, you find that you apply pressure to an amazingly broad points on the cards. The corners, the spine, the whole thing gets really nicely. Also the hop spread, which I'm going to teach you in a bit. Hop spread is a really nice way to apply pressure and really break the cards in a very diverse way, rather than doing your double lift or doing different kind. Or see, I find even springing the cards sometimes only focuses on the sort of the center third, and not so much the corners. Whereas classic pass, and of course just this and the shuffle, and then the bridging the cards, I find is a great way to really get them. This is a brand new deck. I wanted to sort of keep the video at the start here legit. So those are a few thoughts about how I break in, not just the tattoos deck, but pretty much any deck I handle. When I was just getting into Magic many, many years ago, I had a deck which had a pattern of horses. It was like a horses on the cards, and which meant that the deck was one way. It didn't involve a uniform pattern. A lot of decks, like a bicycle card, are uniform, so that whichever way the cards are facing, they're the same, it looks the same. But I specifically had this design as a one-way deck, right? Because obviously they're all facing a certain way. I mean, I guess this, yeah, but when the cards turned around, obviously the easiest clue I always find is the hand. The hand is the one way. Now, it's very simple to think, as a beginner magician, that everybody in the world is going to figure out the one-way principle. This is simply not true. I have fooled people many, 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 many times in the real world, and they don't have to be drunk, using a one-way principle in a card trick. Okay, so having said that, the easiest principle, the easiest way to use the deck, and it's already filled with, I'm sure I've been giving it different shuffles, I've already ruined the one-way pattern, but the easiest thing to do, of course, is to simply have someone grab a card. Okay, so have someone grab a playing card like this. They take one out. Now, I love having people shuffle cards before I do card tricks, but with lay people, I find about, a lot of times they do an overhand shuffle. This is natural. And this does not disturb the one-way principle. All the cards stay the same way, okay? But every now and then you'll get someone, they drop the cards, they spill, and so your whole one-way IDs are done. So this is why when I start to do a trick for people designed for the one-way principle, I often am ready to go into something else. Okay, just want to emphasize that. Now, however, if you want to get them involved, and I find lay people, as soon as they start cutting the cards, okay, cut them into 3 packets, they even put them back together. Nobody, as they assemble the cards, reverses the order, okay? They tend to always cut them like this, and then put them back together. And for lay people, it's amazing how they consider that to be legitimate shuffle. Okay, they think just cutting the cards once or twice is a perfect, complete shuffle, but you and I know a lot better with shuffle. So if you really want people to shuffle the cards and keep the one-way principle, have them cut the cards, okay? Now, the classic way to present this stuff is basically a lie detector test, okay? And what you do is you have someone grab a card, they take out any card. You sure you want that one? You don't, how about touch a card? Touch a card? This one you're sure, okay. So they take the card, and what you do is you square up the cards like this, and having done that, listen to that. I think I'm about to be dive bombed here in Toronto, Canada. They don't want the real work getting out, everybody. After someone's taken a card out and showed it to their friends, okay, or held it up and held it around, all I do when I get the cards back here is I square up the cards like this, an all-round square up. And it can be a pretty casual way, having revolved the deck 180 degrees, right? So they take a card, cards put back in the deck, and I square up the cards like this, and really, the focus is not on this action. Not that they're looking for that, but I want to bury this in something. So the focus is there, but so it's here, they take the card, and it's in the squaring. The focus is on the squaring of the cards, okay? So that's one way to hide reversing the card, because of course now, when they put the card, slip the card back in the middle of the deck, anywhere they want, it's now turned around. It's the one card in the deck turned around. You can put the deck down and have them cut the cards, whatever they want, and they would swear there's no way you could know that card, right? Okay. Another way to do that, which I like even more, is to have someone take a card, they take a card out, okay? I turn the deck over. I say, do you feel you could have had any card? They say yes, and I turn the back over like that. And like that, I've reversed the deck. So the first turn is a 180-degree turn, okay? And obviously, if I did it again, the deck would be back where it started. But I say, and are you pretty sure you feel you could have taken any card? They say yes. And it's nice that now I turn the cards over this way, and everything has been turned 180 degrees, okay? So again, burying that action. So they take a card, boom, like that, and you feel, you could have taken any, or you say something like, they take any card, and you say, and keep in mind, you could have taken literally any card in the deck. It's a nice way to bury it, so that's another way. Now, 2 tricks. There's a million tricks you can do with a one-way deck. But 2 really classic tricks, or one is a lie detector test. So where I just turn the cards up and I say, okay now, and I know there are cards somewhere in about the middle, okay? And maybe they've cut the cards a few times, so I don't even know exactly where it is. And let me just adjust the camera here. Here we go. Okay. There's Jay. Just wanted to see it wasn't some stand-in who had Jay's hairy arms. Is I say, okay, so you've mixed up the cards, you took any card you want, put it back in, whatever, change your mind, and we're going to go through the cards, and I want you to stare at the cards. And as you stare at the cards, I'm going to see whether I can get a sense if your pupils dilate when you see your card, okay? So this is a great combination of sort of magic and science. And I go through like this, and they are totally burning the cards. And I cover my eyes, and notice that with my eyes covered, it's very easy for me to just burn the backs of the cards. I can literally go through them one at a time, okay? And as soon as I see that, now, the fact that I'm not looking them exactly in the eyes the moment their pupils apparently dilate is no big deal. The whole thing's a bit of a, they know it's a fair bit of bullshit is what you're doing here, but boy, it's baffling. Really mysterious. So that's probably the easiest way to spot the turned around card, like this, okay? Just going through, and then you'll get to see the one with the hand is turned the wrong way, and you know that's their card. That's one thing. The other trick, an old bar trick, which I love, and if you haven't done it for people, it's an old beginner's trick, but boy, it plays so well. It's a classic sucker premise, and what you do is this. You say, look, so they've selected a playing card. You know it's turned over in the pack like this. So if you deal through the cards like this and stare here, you'll be able to spot as soon as you see the one reversed card. But you do the classic the next card I turn over bit. And this is a great old-time presentation. Great way to get a free drink or get probably a fist in the face as well. So let's say their card is, let's see, what are we going to do here? The Ace of Hearts, okay? So I go through the cards. I know their card, and I'm going to go through the cards like this. Just going to deal cards here. Wait a second, I'm getting a sense. Yes. The next card I turn over is going to be your card, I'm sure. And the psychology in this is so great because you haven't said, I'm going to turn over this card. You have not said that. You dealt through the cards, you said, and then you isolate one card. You said, the next card I'm going to turn over is your card. Now they can see you already passed their card. So it's a juicy moment. People glance at each other, and then of course you go, you want to bet on it, you want to bet a drink, or how about 2 drinks, or whatever you want. So I said, remember, next card I turn over, you don't quite point at it, but you kind of gesture. And everybody knows you have screwed up. They're certain. And then of course what you do is you reach over and you turn over their card. And people get very upset. The first thing you might have noticed when taking a look at the Tattoos deck is that the card case is printed identical on both sides, okay? Now this is quite unusual for decks of cards, okay? But I wanted to do it because I have found over the years, as much as I enjoy using sleight of hand to switch bills and coins and playing cards and things, I learned a long time ago, if I can accomplish some really amazing magic or switches or secret methods using methods other than difficult sleight of hand, well, that's a great tool in my toolbox, so to speak. So I learned many years ago that actually you can turn over a pack of cards or a card case or so many things. You can turn them over, and as long as you're not focusing on it, saying the magic's happening now, but you're talking to someone real casually, even just taking the cards and the case and putting it down on the table, right? You can turn it over secretly and you can accomplish a whole bunch of cool magic with this as basically a switching device, covered not with sleight of hand, but with totally organic everyday gestures, as opposed to everyday gestures. Okay, now, having said all that, rubber band. Rubber band around a card case, so simple, so organic. And let's say, for example, I have a bill, and I folded up the bill, and I happen to know the last 4 digits of this bill, which what that means, I can have this under the case, right? I can have that right under the case, okay? And I can say to people, or what I can do, and if I want this in my pocket, that's fine, or if I actually want to end up putting it on the table, okay? I can have it folded in such a way that it's gonna, now it's a lot flatter, okay? So I can drop this on the table here, okay? And the reason it looks like it's rising up a little bit above the table is the rubber band. It's not like you put this down here and people go, what? It looks exactly like it's just the rubber band, which is why it's rising off the table, a millimeter, whatever it is. But in fact, I have a folded bill under there. So, what that allows me to do is at some point in my performance, whether it involves a card trick or not, is I can say, who's got a dollar bill? I say, look, and I turn my head. I turn my head while they give it to me, and I fold it in half, okay, like this, and I make sure they see that the serial number is buried inside. So there's no way I could know even one of the digits, right? I'm gonna put that back down, slip it right inside the case, and I'll say, we're gonna try something in just a moment. But first, let me ask you, and I'll literally ask them a question like, do you care much about money? Is money a big deal for you? And just like that, I've done the switch. So either by putting it down on the table, okay, or what I'll sometimes do too is take it here, put it not on the palm, but on the extended fingers, basically here like this. And now I can just gesture like this, and again I do the secret switch, okay? So the action here is nice because both hands support each other. I'll be talking to someone here, gesture forward, come back, and as I come back, I literally just I don't roll the hand so much as close the case, roll the case into the hand. I'm like this and this. And the 2 hands, and again, you don't perform this while being burnt. It's not like the idea, watch very carefully, I'm gonna do something that's gonna be absolutely amazing. It's very much on the offbeat, you're here. So that's a way to do it without even needing the table. You've done that switch, so I'm gonna try to get a sense, I think you'll agree there's no way I could peek any of it. I'm gonna get a sense here, can someone write this down? Remember, a 2, a 5, I see a 6, no, it's 4, and I think a 1. Take this off. There's nothing to see here. The last thing anybody thinks is he has a duplicate bill under the case with the rubber band around it. Nobody. You put this back in your pocket here, they open this up, and you've just done a really direct mentalism divination. Okay, so that's one idea. You're going to find you can have folded cards under here and switch them as well. Another thing I'll do is I'll have a piece of paper here, okay? one with 6 of hearts, one with King of Diamonds. Okay, and I have this folded up here. Have one under the card case, and maybe I have a pencil dot on one so I can remember which one's the king, because Lord knows I've screwed things up a gazillion times in the middle of performances, okay? And let's assume in this instance I'm not going to put it down on the table, okay? So in that way, I can double fold these, because obviously it starts to get a little wibbly if they know the other one's underneath, okay? So here, okay? And what I can do, introduce the cards. Take the case out, kick the cards out, have someone examine the cards and say, right here, I've got a prediction. And I can either show the prediction right now, or I say, we'll get back to that in a moment. This goes back in my pocket. Now I force the first card, okay? And I come back here. They've got the card. I open this up here, and I show them very fairly, or have somebody else open it. Boom, I got it right. Now, to you and I doing magic for years, that might strike you as kind of a dull trick. Believe me, for a layperson, something this simple and clear, that's the key. It's clear magic. Very powerful, okay? Then I fold that back up, okay? Put it under the card case here like this. And I start to kind of, as if I'm going to put the cards away. And I say, wait a second, take the cards and hand them to your friend. Go ahead, have them give a shuffle, okay? And you can see what I've just done here, all right? Now, and I say, in fact, look, let's try it again. I want to see if we can do, we did it once, right? Okay, let's see if we can do it again. Here, I don't even want to touch it. I want you to reach under here and pull it out. Pull out that 6, okay? And I just say, pull out that 6. I say, hold it in your hand. Then this goes in my pocket, okay? He's shuffled the cards. I say, so you gave the cards a really good shuffle. You can see they're all mixed. And I just spot whatever's going to be my second force card and cull that, okay, just slip. I just cull that underneath, okay? And then I force this one. Now, when I force, everyone thinks I'm going to go for the 6 of hearts again. They've got, did it once, getting do it again. When I turn over the card, and it's not the right card, okay? It's not the right card. Again, everyone, I love the sucker element. Everyone believes, oh my God, he missed it. And I say, give me one more chance, deliberately, and, you know, boom. And then I say, well, what was it? And he says, the so-and-so, and I say, well, snap my fingers over. So you not only correctly predict twice, but the prediction in their hand also changes to match. So those are a couple of really cool things. Now, I also mentioned at the very beginning of this, if you keep the plastic on, if you keep this cellophane plastic wrapped around the case, then, of course, you can do something as simple and as fun, it's a great transitional thing, is to have a coin. Let's say, in this case, I'm having a nickel, but it could be anything, okay? Just tap that. Nice impossible location, okay? It's under the plastic, and of course it looks identical on both sides. So I can say, I'm going to show you something using, you know, maybe, and again, maybe the cards have been put away and I just make sure it didn't flash at any point. Either before the card trick or after the card trick, I can say, would you like to see a coin trick? Watch, this is called the invisible coin. Watch carefully, watch it. And you don't go, it's going to appear here, but you say, watch my hand very carefully. You make sure they can see, and you go, watch, and you reach. And the moment I reach out, the very moment I reach out like this, is the moment I turn this over. Okay, so nobody, I go, watch my hand very carefully. Here we go, 3, 2, 1, just like that. And I can come up here, and then I can put it right there, and they can see the coin. Okay. Now that's really cool, because I'll sometimes even emphasize to people, I'll say, I'll first draw attention to the plastic. I'll say, oh, you might be wondering why I keep the plastic on. Well, I really want my cards in good condition. Then like a minute or two later, I say, watch, and that way they can see there's nothing there. Do the invisible coin, or have somebody else reach into the air and pretend to produce a coin. I say, great, I'll take the coin from you and put it right down there, and there it is, and it's under the plastic as well. So just by turning this over, and you're going to find, if you experiment with folded cards, coins, there's literally no end. There's such a simple idea of being able to secretly switch in things and make things appear. There's really no end to the cool stuff you can do with this double-sided. Now let's take a look at two very dramatic reveals of selected playing cards. I'll tell you right now, I seldom use both of these together. And sometimes I go through periods where I don't use either of them, and then other times I do. It's sort of, what I love about these two reveals is they're always waiting for me. They're both waiting for me, the card case and the Ace of Spades. They're waiting for me to use whenever I want, whenever I feel like them. And it's a pretty rare situation where you can have something literally incorporated into the props you're handling in front of people, but you don't have to use it. And there's nothing they're going to necessarily find. I've never, you know, people can look inside the card case, of course. Got to make sure you turn it the right way. People can open the card case, of course, and see, you know, there's nothing to see in the card case. There's absolutely nothing to see. There's nothing anywhere. So, you know, you're never going to get busted with that reveal on the, which is what I love about it. I mean, I've seen people where they have reveals on the side and things, and you pretty much have to. If someone's going to look at your card case, and I find in the real world, people often want to look at everything, particularly if they've been drinking a bit. Let me look in there, let me look here. So they can examine this and find nothing. They'll go through the cards and find nothing. I've never once been busted on the Ace of Spades reveal, okay? And again, it's only because you're not drawing any attention to this stuff. It's basically secret weapons waiting for you to use when you want. Now, obviously, you could force your favorite card, then ta-da, just reveal it if you want. But let me give you a couple of pointers here, a couple of things that I've done before. Now, so the card case, the ordinary large flap you'd use, there's nothing gimmicked about that or tricky, but at the other end, you will find you can open the end, and it has a nice your card with the 2 of clubs. Okay, it's right on the end of the flap there. So what's a great way to reveal that? There's a lot, I mean, again, it's just about your imagination. My favorite thing to do with it, frankly, and I've tried a bunch of different things, is to do it as a bet. And I do love the bet angles on things where I'll say to someone, you know what, I'll say to someone, look, let's put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to bet you. I'm going to bet you $1, okay? Or a $10, $15. I'm going to bet you $1, okay? And in fact, I'm even going to let you hold on to the money, and I give them that. I mean, I love the image of that. The money's there, there's real stakes, they're holding on to the card case, everything is totally legit. And then, of course, I just force the 2, right? Force the 2 in whatever way I want. Once I force the 2, they put it back in the pack, and I go, okay, here we go. Give the cards a shuffle. I love giving people a chance to shuffle the cards when they can, right? Because later on, when you don't want them to shuffle, there's still this sense that we shuffle the cards whenever we want it. Then, of course, you fake reveal the card. You go, here it is, I'm not sure. Boom, is that your card? And they go, no. You go, okay, well, you know, let me try one more time. Here is, you want to make sure you don't actually cut to it by accident. You say, is this your card? And you go, no. Well, you say, okay, well, tell you what, I said you get the money. You get the money. I take the case of them. I open up the flap, and just as I'm reaching in here like this, I go, oh, wait a second. So just as they think they're about to get the money, I love that. I go, wait a second, look, take a look at the fine print. And they take a look and they see, you know, of course your card was the 2 of clubs, and you get to keep your money. Okay, so I love that. You'll have your own way to reveal that and present that, but I think that's a really cool way. Now, if for whatever reason it's not your style to use the second, it's because this is essentially a double-ended card flap, right? Some cool things you can do with that too. But then of course what you can do is you can either, you can put a little glue there and glue this permanently in place if you want. All right, that's one thing you can do, or use a bit of tape. If you want to seal that up permanently, no one's the wiser, there's nothing to discover. Okay, just so you don't feel obliged to use that. Okay, so that's with the flap, which I really like. Now with the ace, it works, I think it's even more cool, right? Because with the ace, of course, if you check it, it looks like a standard ace, okay? I wanted everything to look as ordinary and down to earth in this deck as possible. But if you look at the fine print, I know your card is the 5 of clubs. So this is even more dramatic because this is waiting for you in your cards whenever you want at any time, right? Whenever you want, you can force the 5 of clubs, okay? And, you know, I'll tell you, in live performance in front of real people, not just magicians, this is sometimes the way the deck's been shuffled. I'll literally go through and go, okay, let me try something with a playing card. Let's see, what are we going to try? We're going to try something with this one right, you know, actually, wait a second. How about you're supposed to select the cards. Go ahead, select a card. And all I've done is gone through the shuffle deck, found the 5 of clubs, openly took it right out in front of them and said, actually, wait a second, you're supposed to select the cards. Do a false cut or cut the cards and keep a pinky break for the riffle force, whatever, and I go into it right there. So it's an acting. I find the magicians out there who are comfortable doing a little bit of acting can really do so much more because you're not limited to just gimmicks and sleights, right? Or your script. You can improv stuff. So that's something I encourage all my students to work more on is a little more daring in the acting department, okay? And that's an example. Just go through and try that out. Make that, it's really more of a ruse. Make that ruse your own, in your own style. But going through, taking out a card, actually, wait a second, you're supposed to take the, go ahead, pick a card. I can do this with any card, that kind of thing. So anyway, I forced the 5 of clubs. Have the card shuffled again. Say, concentrate on your card. Now, you can reveal the ace with a fancy cut or a double lift change or whatever you want, but you know what I find is really direct? Just go through the cards. Say, here we go, I'm going to narrow it down. I think I'm not sure. No, I'm hoping, oh, I see. Very dramatic. Okay, I now know for sure, I've got it. I'm sure. And you either say, your choice, say, I'm sure this is your card, right? And they go, no, it wasn't. You go, really? You're sure? What was your card? Then they announce it for everybody. Or you do it the other way, which I like. So I've got your card. Go ahead. Just so everybody, I'm not going to change my mind. Right here, name your card out loud. And they go, 5 of clubs. And you go, stop kidding. What was it really? And they go, 5 of clubs. And so I love the commitment of this. You keep looking at this. And then finally, you turn around and you go, well, ta-da, there you go. And you could either go that you looked like you didn't get it right and then ask someone to go ahead and check the fine print here, or you go the other route, which I like to do when I go, they say 5 of clubs, I go, there you go, guys. And there's this disconnect. There's this, well, he seems so confident that this is the card, but why is he confident? He screwed up. And then to sort of the denouement, the reveal of why, is you then have them check the fine print again. Okay, so I love this. This is an idea I came with many, many, many years ago, original with me, and I really wanted to incorporate this funky idea. When I was coming up with a whole bunch of different ideas I wanted to incorporate into the Tattoos deck, I knew this is an idea I came up with a long time ago, and I wanted to make sure to include it in this collector's deck as well. Here's an added bonus I had incorporated into the design of the Tattoos deck, because one of my tattoos is a sun, for my son Mason. And I deliberately had the design made here, and actually my tattoo is not quite identical to this, but so that there is what is a classic clock pattern. You're going to find that on the flames, if you count the flames, you'll see they're all the same as a clock. So the one on the top is 12 o'clock, the one on the far right is 3 o'clock, the one on the bottom 6 o'clock, and then of course in the middle on the left side is a 9, okay? So it's like a clock, but in the same way, it's also like the numbers of cards. So if you imagine that in the 1 o'clock position, that could be the ace, the 2, the 3 is a 3, the 5 is a 5, everything else. So it starts at 1 o'clock with an ace, okay, and ends up going 9, 10. The 11 o'clock is the jack, and the 12 o'clock is the queen, okay? I'll talk to you about the king in a second. So if you just make a mark in the flame at the appropriate spot, okay, now, you'll see also I've got 4 other marks here for chased, clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds down here, okay? And so, and that's a classic magician's pattern. So for clubs I can mark there, hearts there, spades here, and diamond there. Okay, so that's the basic idea. Now, let me show you some real simple examples here. And again, I don't use mark cards a whole lot, but this makes marking this deck super fast and really convenient. Okay, so say for example we have a queen here, queen of hearts. Now if I want to mark it, all I need to do is grab the end of a paper clip, a pin, a needle, something like this. Okay, so I've got this here. Now if I want to mark the queen, I'm going to do it at the 12 o'clock spot. So I'm come on up here, and all I'm going to do is scratch off, I should say, a little bit of the white, or the ink. Just a little bit to mark that spot. Okay, so at a glance, and once you get comfortable with these, I know that's a queen. Now, if I want to mark it as a heart, then as I said, it's clubs, hearts. All I do here is make a little scratch in here, like that. Now, at a glance, I can see it's a queen of hearts. Okay, because it's clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds. Queen of hearts. Here's another example. Let's go with a 5. 5 of clubs. So again, we know it's clubs, hearts, spades and diamonds. I go around like clockwise, so to speak. And because I know this is a 5 of clubs, I'm going to go, first my club is going to be up in here, so I'm going to make a little scratch up in there. Okay, just a little scratch. That's actually, maybe I'd make it a tiny bit to be able to see it from 3 feet, maybe a little bit bigger, but nobody's looking for that. So I've marked the club, okay? Then in the upper left-hand corner, since it's a 5, I'm going to count down, as we know, 1, which would be the ace, ace, 2, 3, 4, 5. So not the 6, but the 5 down here. I'm just trying to look through the camera here, sorry guys. There we go, we got the 5 here. And again, just a little bit, taking up a little bit of the ink on the end there, like that. There we go. So I've been able to mark the 5 of clubs. And now, for you, you may find you have to make them slightly more pronounced. It's a little bit of a practice thing, but it's a super simple way that just with a pen, and I mean literally in less than 10 minutes, you can mark the entire deck, both these suits. Now, the king, I almost forgot. I knew there was one other thing. The king, if you want it, because of course that's the queen. So with the king, all I do is I simply mark whether it's a club, heart, spade, or diamond. So no other marks. I don't mark any other flames. If I want to make sure it's a king, when I glance at it and all I see is a tiny mark in one of the suits, I immediately know that's the king of that suit. as I've already mentioned a couple of times, this, if you checked out my channel on YouTube or anything, hopefully it comes across that I really, truly appreciate my fans. I literally would be nothing without my fans when it comes to my magic and my business and all that. So I created this deck as a sort of one way of saying thanks to all my fans. And as I've said all along, I wanted it to be personal. I want it to be one of the most personal and unique designs of cards in the world. So I based it on my tattoos. And I figured this project wouldn't be complete unless I told you a little bit about the tattoos. I won't go into a whole lot of detail, but here, that is the original sun, and that I got tattooed on me just sort of out of love for my son Mason. It's funny, I didn't think about tattoos, getting a tattoo for many, many years. I thought, why would I ever do that? And then one day, it just sort of felt right. Anyway, sun, that's for my son Mason. And then I have a moon, because if Mason's my son, definitely my daughter Madeline, or Maddie, she's definitely my moon. They really mean the world to me, these two. The universe, I guess, to me, given the sun and the moon. So that's the moon for Madeline, sun for Mason. Snake. I got this tattoo a long time ago, and when I was a younger man, it's called an Ouroboros. And when I was a younger man, I imagined that the snake would eat its tail and eventually vanish. But as I've looked into it more, and as the years go by, I've discovered that actually this is an ancient and universal symbol for reinvention and recreation. And certainly as a performer in showbiz, in many ways I've reinvented myself and recreated myself. And I bet if you think about your own exploration of the arts in general, and magic and maybe other things you do, I bet you've reinvented yourself a few times too. So that's for reinvention, the Ouroboros. Over here is a lion that looks like he's got a rock and roll kiss tongue going down the floor. It's not that. It's a stream of water actually coming out of his mouth. And this is the earliest memory I have in my whole life. Sort of in a way where J starts for J in my mind. When I was a kid, about 6, 7 months old, my mom took me to a wading pool. And I remember her holding me in the water there, not under the water, but sort of holding me in the water. And I remember the sound of the water pour, the sound of this quiet drumming sound. And I looked up and there was a concrete lion's face. It was a fountain. And pouring out of his mouth was this water into this wading pool. And that was the sound of that drumming. So that's also another tattoo, and sort of where I begin my earliest memory. So I've got myself marked there. And then finally, I do have like I mentioned, I want to show you guys it. That's sort of my ode to the bicycle brand, though as opposed to a little angel, it's sort of more of a middle-aged guy with no hair. Wonder what that's up to. And then finally here. I thought this was a relatively original symbol, and then I researched it like so many, and it's classic Jung, collective unconscious, because it's actually a symbol you'll find in the Yiddish culture and the Arabic culture. It can be about the evil eye and different things, but for me, this tattoo, it's the only one that got a bit of color, green, like my eyes. The reason I got this tattoo was twofold. One, notice the line going across there. That's a simian lifeline. They're very rare. If you look at your lifeline, it's probably made up of 2 lines, not just one across. I actually have simian lines. I do have that second line going down, but straight across the palm. Straight across the palm. Very rare. So, and, I love magic and I love comedy and I love being a dad and all those things, but so much of it comes down to me is touch. I think the ability to touch people, not just figuratively, but when I'm performing magic and handing people stuff and shaking hands, I really do touch people a lot in the world, as creepy as that may sound. And so this is sort of a tattoo I got that the basic idea is, I think, is that, through something as brute as touch, we can get to something transcendental together. Those are 2 of my all-time favorite and most performed flourishes. Some people say, Di Vernon was famous for saying this, when you do a flourish, you're giving away your skill and therefore undercutting the magic. And I think back in the day, old school, it makes a lot of sense when you wanted things to have a bit of a mumbo-jumbo, the devil's going to help me, the spirits are going to help me kind of thing. I think in a more modern world that we live in now, people are more apt to assume it's skill that's involved. And so given that, and I have to walk up to people all the time and immediately sell myself as a real magician, as I'm not Uncle Henry, And so I find going up to people and having a deck of cards maybe already in my hand and immediately doing a flourish establishes this guy is worth watching. He's not like my uncle or my cousin or this or that. He is a professional. He's put in time on this. And so in that regard, I find being able to do a few flourishes is extremely commercial. Very effective way to break the ice and get everybody's attention and immediate respect. Okay? So having said this, here's some of my favorite flourishes and changes and things. So first we've got the illogical cut, and this is based on Johnny Mattiolo's illogical cut. And all I did was I added one more packet to it. And in fact, this is so old, this was pre-Sybil. So some people, and I'm not a big student, I don't know a whole lot about flourishing, I gotta say. However, or cardistry. Having said that, I've had many people tell me that the illogical cut is certainly one of the granddaddies, sort of not ground zero for the flourishing movement, but one of the very early influences that sort of sparked the whole thing, which for me is very gratifying and cool. You know, it's not something I'm big into, but it's neat to see where your work goes after so many years. Having said that, so the illogical cut, you're here, I come over, and I'm going to lift the first packet with the first finger, okay? Thumb at the back. Then I'm going to lift the second packet, and again, my thumb is holding both, okay? They're both now balanced on my first finger, okay? They're both balanced on the first finger, is the situation there. Then with the top two fingers, I split the packet, so now I'm dealing with 4 packets. 2 fingers here, and it's all balancing on that first finger. And I'm going to pivot. I'm going to pivot around, and I'm going to grab the front edge of the second packet from the top between the finger and thumb. Then I'm going to move this packet, everything's still balancing on the left first finger, around. Okay. Now the original Johnny Mattiolo cut ended there, and you squared it up. So essentially all you were doing was taking these 2 middle packets and reversing them and squaring everything in. So the top packet stays the same, the bottom packet stays the same, it's just the 2 middle packets are getting changed. But I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool to add one more spin on it? And therefore it's a full deck control, which certainly, I mean, if you're going to use flourishes, why not use them that have full deck controls in lots of situations? And again, I don't do 40 different flourishes, I probably only do 10 or 15, okay, but these are a couple of my favorite. So kick, so if you add one more time to it, what you can do is you can reverse these 2, then just move the top packet forward, okay, that's all I'm doing here, and spin those 2, and you've reversed the reverse. The 2 middle packets change places and then get back to where they are. So that's the illogical cut. Really like this. Now, the butterfly. This is something I believe is credited to Paul Harris. Paul Harris and, darn it, I think it's Paul Harris. Okay, now for the butterfly cut. I learned this from a Paul Harris book. Definitely, some of my fans think I created this. I did not create the butterfly cut. The butterfly cut's so pretty. You start with the deck here, okay? First finger curled, and you're going to riffle off about half the deck and have it roll off, and then immediately end up roll completely, so that it's a mirror situation. About half the deck in both hands, okay? Now I'm going to do a Charlier cut, and a Charlier cut, you know, one of the things, I got very small hands. One of the things I had to work on with the Charlier, because for the longest time I was holding it like this, flat. And so all the pressure was coming down from and this darn bottom card would often come out. The bottom card of this packet would get pulled out. So it took me a long time to figure out actually the best way to do this cut is to cut and then keep the angle. Don't flatten and put everything there. Keep that slightly angled, and you'll find it's a lot easier to clear the 2 packets with it slightly angled like this, not like this. Okay? Now this, of course, takes a lot of practice because you have to be able to Charlier cut, I'll do it slowly here, in both hands. And then they clear. Okay, now that's what you want to practice. This sort of step 1 is once you get that you can Charlier cut in both hands, okay? Then you can go to the next step. The next step is don't let them close. Keep the hands tilted back long enough that the first fingers can come around and get underneath. Okay, you want the first fingers of both hands to end up between the packets. Now again, please, I've got very small hands. Out of curiosity, let me see if I can show you this here. I'm going to hold a card up to my palm here and put it in my palm. Okay, I want you to see. Maybe this will give you a sense of just, when I tell my students I have small hands, I mean my hands, let's see, I'm still here, maybe that's the best way to do it. You can hold it out and compare where your pinky comes where the hand ends here. I've got small hands, okay? So I've had to work really hard to figure out how to make some of this stuff work. So hopefully some of the things I've learned can help a few you younger guys with small hands. Anyway, so I cut the cards. You push them up. The fingers go in. Then both hands roll over their packets, and again, this is just for training, okay? Pause there. If you need to straighten up the packet, tap it on the table. At this point, do so, okay? So now I've got this middle packet supported only by the tips of the first two fingers of both hands, okay? Like this. To finish, if you bring your arms in, bring them elbows in. That'll give you the room you need to turn over this middle packet, okay? Then you're gonna flip, and you're gonna flip, and you're gonna flip it over, okay? I know, it seems crazy. If you're walking through with me now, I apologize. You're gonna think to yourself, man, I will never be able to get it like that. But trust me, I've got tiny hands at the size of a 6-month-old child. If I can get this sucker down, so can you. And boy, you do this for lay people and their eyes literally, or not literally, but they figuratively fall out of their heads. I mean, it's a guaranteed gasp getter. Now the hop spread. Hop spread. Paul LePaul's hop spread. I love this. To people, this looks like magic. It looks like you're spreading the cards. And I've heard lay people more than once or twice say that they sort of say something. They call it the floating cards. Do that again, the floating cards. They'll say, oh my God, show me the floating cards again. So for them, this looks like the cards are floating between the hands, which I love. And so for this, what I'm doing is I'm squeezing and putting the deck in. And my advice to you is to start with half of the cards, okay? And you're going to apply, you got your fingertips, just notice how the fingertips are just above it. You don't want them like that. Okay, that's going to prevent you. You also don't want them like this. It's so the tips are just above the surface of the cards, okay? You're going to squeeze. Now, the pressure is not, strictly speaking, directly across. It's at a slight angle. I'm kind of squeezing them to the right, but also kind of forward. And when you're practicing this, you're going to eventually hopefully get it broad enough that you're going to need the fingers to support a longer spread. So you want these going into the crotch of your thumb. Okay, you want basically right into the crotch. And you're going to go, damn it, Jay. Whenever you try it, right, they're going to come out in 2 or 3 big blocks, right? Boom, boom, boom. Just these big blocks. That means you're on your way. Don't sweat, okay? You're actually on your way. And eventually, and this is one of these things, just keep practicing. But remember, you're not squeezing perfectly. You're actually trying to move everything sort of on a bit of an angle. And it is just by squeezing. And then once you get half a deck down, these two probably now won't marry very well together. Let's see, once you get half a deck down, well, they're doing okay, is then you'll be able to get a full deck. And this is, again, this is by Paul LePaul, the LePaul spread. And boy, it sounds good, and it looks good, and it truly is a thing of beauty. The Erdnase color change. Apparently, it's actually the Erdnase Houdini color change, because from what I understand, lore says that Erdnase showed him this very similar, and Houdini made some mystical slight change and made it even better. That's apparent. But it is definitely credited to Erdnase, or Erdnase, I guess. You don't have to put another syllable in there. I love this. I've used it forever. I love the angles on it. I love so much about this. So I love the fact that you can show your hand absolutely empty. I love the fact that you cover the card, you give it a wave, or maybe open your fingers, and it just changes, okay? The technique, very simple, but it will take practice like anything. Right hand shows empty. You come over, and you apparently just cover it. But in that action, I push the card forward. Now, when I do it, I only push it a little bit. When you're practicing, do it 1/3. 1/3. So you want to come down, and with the, basically, not with the tips, but with the pads of the finger here, you push the card forward about 1/3 of its length, okay? Like this. Now you're going to pull the hand back to show. Now you don't do it, like, notice you don't do it this way, or people get a sense of the card out. It's always good to really keep the hand flat to the people, right? So you're here or right under their noses, how I love to do it too, down like this. So I come over and I've covered, and in the covering I've got it forward. Now the heel of the hand, just this, is going to gently press here, and I'm going to slide back, giving you exposed view. Slide back the card until the moment you feel the one card clear the other, okay? In that moment, is when you're going to push this forward and the tip of the first finger actually takes this out jog card and squares it, and the whole thing happens at the same time. So I'm here, hand pulls back to show the 10, come forward, rub, and change. I mean, I love it. The fact that the right hand, and it's, and this is so much better on angles than so many change. You can do it right under people's noses. There's very little to see. Okay, keep practicing. I love the circular action. You can keep it nice and straight if you want, okay? But the circular action to me sort of gives the whole thing a real flow to it. Makes it look even more impossible. It's a great way to have a selected card or a card someone's thinking of apparently suddenly appear, do a card change in a longer routine. There's a million. Do a color change from red to blue, make initials appear in the back of a card. There is no limit what you can do with this amazing change. I love the second deal change because it's so nonchalant. It has this real casual idea of, here's a playing card, I'm going to take it, give it a little shake, and it changes. It seems very unshowy and very organic and simple, and I think that's one of the things that makes it so powerful. And all I'm doing is a second deal and making sure that my hands, you don't want to do this action because then it looks like I'm trying to conceal things. You really have to time it when you're apparently taking the card off. And it's called a second deal change because the left thumb is gonna pivot that card. Now you don't push it off to the side, okay? And you don't pull it straight back. It's a little bit, it's more pivoting from this point, okay? It's pivoting like that, pivoting, and you can get it right back on. And here, and I'm coming over here with the thumb. The thumb is making the contact. It's not a first finger. The first contact is the thumb, and just the pressure of the thumb pulls that off, okay? You want enough pressure that just the thumb. It took me years to learn. It happened after about literally 10 years of card magic. My hands suddenly started to relax. And in that, all of a sudden, when they relaxed, I was able to really, make the most of my magic at that point. Really start clicking. It was a different kind of experience. So here, anyway, is I'm here. I come over, I make sure they see the card. And what's nice about this, too, is it's not that the right hand comes over or the left hand comes over. They work together. It's sort of like there. You know what I mean? And that gives you lots of organic and natural misdirection. Things are in motion, and they're in motion for a good reason. Okay, the left hand comes over, delivers it to the right, or the right can kind of come in, meet in the middle. Very relaxed, very loose. Now you want to make sure that you add a time lapse. This is key for changes, because if you show the 10 of spades, and then it changes to a card, there's this sense already of, he just grabbed another card from there, right there. Whereas if instead you show the 5 and take the 5, put the deck down, give a twist, say concentrate on your card and see if I can get the 5 to look a little. Now every second that the cards are away from the deck is a time lapse that'll really cancel out the idea that you did any kind of switch. Okay? So that is the second deal change. And again, like anything, take some practice, but boy, I like it a lot. Now you might have noticed to show and to teach the rub away vanish, I've adjusted the camera angle. And this is not because this is a very angly technique. It's not. In fact, out of all the techniques, the switches and changes I've shared with you on this video, it's probably one of the most forgiving of angles. However, there's no question it looks best when people look down at it. That's when it's most effective. Now notice you can do this on the table, you can do it on a carpet. I've done it directly onto someone's hand, so I had it vanish between our hands. You can do it on your knee. Some performers, what they do literally is they lift up, they stand on one leg for a beat, bend their knee, and do it on top of their pants. So there's so many places you can do this. I love it. Now, this reminds me a little bit of the second deal change. The second deal, because it's about motion. Okay, it's not something you isolate. It's not something where the hand is here, you push, this hand comes over and you do the move. You can do it that way, but I think it's much more effective if the left hand is swinging in. The left hand swinging in, the right hand, but the hands don't meet quite in the middle. Think of it as 2/3 of the journey here and 1/3 there. Because if they meet in the middle, I find it cancels the momentum. This is almost a retention vanish, really, what you're after here. You want it to almost suggest that the left hand is tossing or pushing off the card. And to support that left to right momentum, I like to have the hand move, fluted from left to right, okay, rather than stopping here and doing it. So it comes in and the right hand comes over. And you're trying to get this. I've even seen some performers open their fingers. It can look a little weird, but it can give a nice retention. If you're there, come over here, you see the card, and the moment you're apparently covering the card with your fingers is the moment the fingers close. So there's this kind of retention. I find that though a bit, I'd rather, my technique for sleight of hand is a little broader. I work on more the meta level, make sure the broad strokes are there, less about the particular details. So it's here, you're pushing it down with your thumb and holding it there. The left hand doesn't come over like this. I prefer this notion of closing it like a book. Like a book, okay? And yes, the action with the left hand is pulling this in, but you don't, the real action is of the hand, apparently, of the left hand turning over and going away. So you're combining this sweep in with this closing like this, and then the rest is time and mirror practice, mirror practice. Here, you're covering that like that as this is pulling it and going away and rolling over. But once you get the timing right, boy. And again, this again is about presenting a time lapse. If I do this, and show it's gone, there's this sense of, well, did he even put it on the table? But if I do this and this, put my other hand on top or have somebody else press down, okay, like this. Notice you could even riff the simplest thing where you're sitting at a table with friends. Maybe this is a sign card, I don't know. You can say, look, let's try something. You can even hand the card to someone and say, hold this under the table. They hold the deck under the table. I put my hand here, someone else puts their hand on top. We all press, lift, show it's gone, but no, it's melted through the table. Have your friend bring the deck up and turn over the top card. You can also do it as a color change, okay? You can do this as a color change. The way you do that is to have a card palmed, okay? Could be a blue back card. You can come over here, do the switch, and visibly it goes from red to blue, okay? So you can do it as a vanish, you can do it as a color change, you can do a whole bunch of different things with it. And I really do think it's just a gorgeous piece of card magic. Once again, a great big thanks to all my fans who really supported me on this project. As soon as word got out that I was going to release a sort of a custom pack, oh wow, there's been so much interest in this deck, and so I really want to thank you all. At the same time, I don't want to take anything away but from my sincere and heartfelt thanks for you getting this deck and for the support from my fans. I also want to just take a moment to remind you, at least to share a thought of mine, and that is, that the sleights and the presentations and the tricks and the card, the deck, whatever deck you use, they're all just tools. I think magic at its best is a combination of connecting with people and expressing yourself. And I've been very lucky to find over the years that when I'm performing magic with people and I feel comfortable to share my real self, that the tricks matter and the magic moments and the gasps are all great and the screams are fun and all that. But, or maybe the takeaway I find with people is there's this sense that something happened together. There wasn't this guy who showed them crazy things and, watch me, ain't I great kind of way. But it was more about some time we spent together with people. And so the tricks in that regard are kind of the misdirection. You say you're a magician, I'm going to show you something, and people get caught up in it. But I find what's really exciting is when people share a moment, when they blurt out something that morning. In fact, if you'd asked them 10 minutes before, would you blurt this out in front of strangers and a weird magician comes to your table or the party or whatever, they go, no. But they find themselves inspired by the connection and the energy of that. So yeah, I appreciate people, definitely appreciate you support on the deck and for purchasing the deck, and hopefully you keep in mind it's a tool. I have young students and they get so caught up when buying the newest deck and the pattern and the this and the that there's almost this sense that they're convinced that the deck's going to make them a better magician or a better performer, and that's simply not true. It's certainly, I think it's, I've been in magic for so many years and I'm grateful for anything and everything that sparked my passion along the way. Because you can be excited about this aspect about it and it can wear thin after a while and hopefully you find something else. So I'm certainly not trying to rain on anybody's parade. I just want to sort of stay true to my philosophy around this deck. And, most of all, having had fans for so many years, one of the great takeaways, and it's very humbling, is to try to find the courage to be myself. Is to be honest and to share what it is about magic and card trick and things that really turns me on, and to honestly share with you some of the things I've learned, and so hopefully you'll try them on and they'll fit some of you, and others you'll go, well, Jay was talking a lot of crap on that one. So thank you so much, very much for the support on the deck, and I hope you really enjoy performing and practicing and farting around with the Tattoos deck. Thanks so much.